Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome everybody to the fourth episode of the CWL podcast. No matter where you are, how you're watching or listening, just want to thank you for coming on, just listening, watching, whatever you're doing. We appreciate you. I am, once again, as always, joined by my good friend and co-host, MaDaC. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. I just want to throw a quick shout out to everybody following the stream. Every time that we have disco lights going on in the background, that's basically why. So thank you all for giving me that disco opportunity. But yeah, I'm pretty good, man.
Good.
How about yourself? You doing well?
Yeah, a little tired, but it happens. So I'm ready to talk about some Call of Duty. But before we jump into some Call of Duty, I do have a couple of things I want to just touch on. Very first one being our great sponsor. I believe they're down in the bottom left of the stream, and
Top left,
excuse me, and that is Audible. They are great. If you go to audibletrial.com/the CWL podcast, you can get 1 month free trial of Audible, absolutely free, which includes 1 free audiobook, 2 Audible originals that you can download to your device, as well as access to thousands, and I mean probably closer to hundreds of thousands than thousands, if I'm completely honest, but there's a bunch of audiobooks available on Audible. You can listen on your phone, on your tablet, in your car, on your Alexa. Sure, you could, I don't know, get it beamed into your head any way you like, and the quality is pristine. As I mentioned last week, my wife's family, they live like 6 hours drive away. We go and see them probably once every 3 or 4 months, and I just turn an audiobook on, and it just makes the drive so much better. This week specifically, I haven't listened to anything, but that's just because I've just been crazy busy. But I have Lord of the Rings, I have Harry Potter, I have Ready Player One, the story I mentioned last week. They are just absolutely amazing quality, just great books, all things that you should listen to. Once again, audibletrial.com/the CWL podcast, and you get 1 month free trial. I can't recommend it highly enough. And
I like it. Have you been practicing that?
No, just ad libs, really, just making up as I go along. That's what I do best, really. One more thing I want to touch on a little bit, and this has come up on Twitter, on Reddit a little bit, and as Maxi, just I feel like you go above and beyond. I don't know if I've actually mentioned this to you. I've definitely been thinking it. When I asked you to come on the podcast, my expectations for you were, I don't know, let's say here, what you do is, so much higher. You go above and beyond anything that I expected you to do. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for that. But secondly, I just want to say it come up that we're not pro players. We're not these huge members of the community. We're not casters. We are just people. For lack of a better term, we're nobodies. And first of all, I want to say, yes, we are aware of that. we are very aware of that. Maxi has I would say a moderate stream. You're starting to build up that following, but it's not quite there yet.
Yeah,
and
doing my best.
Yeah, just doing your best. Exactly. I think that's a good way to put it. We're just doing our best, and as Maxi mentioned in the very first episode, and I think a couple of times since then, we're just trying to fill a void that we personally found in the CWL, the Call of Duty Esports scene. If you don't like listening to us, that's completely fine. We appreciate that. Maybe give us a try, but if you don't like it after then, that's completely fine. We don't necessarily want the negativity, though. I try and focus on positives in things, especially in life. As I've grown up, as I've matured from a teenager into what is now a nearly 30-year-old. I try and block out a lot of the negativity, and that's definitely not what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to make out like we are something that we're not. We're just trying to have fun with it. We're just two friends talking about Call of Duty.
Yeah, and so we addressed it in the first episode of the podcast as well. Main goals for this is obviously we both have listened to podcasts for a long time. We've obviously both been following the COD community for a while, and basically we just wanting to fill a gap within the community, because we both have found ourselves looking for podcasts related to the Call of Duty for quite a while. So yeah, we found, obviously, Nameless was one of the ones that was mentioned over the past couple of days. He started one, but it didn't last very long. I know he's been talking about bringing it back and things like that. But it's one of those things that we want to make something consistent that everybody within the community can listen to on a regular basis. And that's basically what we're going for. So yeah, that's where we're at. Like Sam said, give us a shot. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. We're not expecting everybody to love us. That's as simple as that, basically.
Right. So yeah, I would like to jump into just a little recap from last week. And last week we gave our predictions for the groups for CWL Fort Worth, and I have to say, for the tournament as a whole, although I didn't get to watch as much as I would like to, which was a little disappointing for me, as a whole, it was like upset after upset after upset. And of the top three, one of them I would have predicted to be there, but the other two I certainly would not have predicted, especially given their league performances. So
yeah,
I just, as an overview, what was your kind of takeaway from Fort Worth? What did you think about it?
Always expect the unexpected. I think is the best way to sum it up. You know, we like you said, we put in some predictions and everything else, and basically we were wrong, to sum it up. Not only we were wrong, but we also had BZ give his predictions while he was on the stream as well last week, and basically the same thing. Yep. Like everything all of us thought was just completely wrong. So you know, I think it was a really good tournament. I think it really shows how good the competition is this year, and of course it shows that you know, it's a great year for Call of Duty, and going to be more and more to come, especially with you know, these roster changes going on and things like that. So
to give you the exact figures, MaDaC, yourself, you got 25% of the outcomes of the maps correct. That was 4 out of 16 you got correct. Oh, sorry, the placings in each group, sorry. So 4 out of the 16 you predicted correctly.
Right.
I got 19%, so that puts me at, I believe, 3 out of 16, which is crazy, especially given that Pool D almost entirely was backwards.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
I don't have the predictions up in front of me right now, but there was at least like 2 pools that everything was just like craziness. So I'm a man of my word. I do have your donation page up right now. I believe it was a $10 bet, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Let me see.
I don't know why that didn't click before when you were asking about the PayPal thing. That makes sense now. Yes.
Just give me 1 second here. I'm just thinking of a smart and funny donation message. So.
Okay, well, that's going to take a while.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a great tournament. I think there was definitely a few upsets in there. Obviously, we're going to be touching on a lot more of this later on with Parasite once he does join, which, by the way, for anybody who has been asking in the chat, he will be joining us here in just a little bit. He's basically ready whenever. We're just kind of going over a couple of things before we get all. But yeah, like I said, I think it's just a small little tidbit of what we're going to be seeing moving forward throughout the rest of the year, and all it did for me was make me even more excited, like I said, for what.
Right, and I'm always interested about you know, what, like, is it better for the scene if there's one dominant team, like when we had and we had Impact back in the day, just one team winning everything, or is it better for the scene nowadays where there's, you know, there's probably 3, 4, maybe 5 teams that could literally win anything? Like, what is your opinion on that? Quickly, if you want to touch on it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a good thing. You know, it shows that, first of all, it allows more of the fan bases of all these different teams and everything else to really grow and really bring out a lot more passion because of the teams rising to the top occasion, rather than it just being, when does Optic play?
Optic, of course, I forgot. I forgot about them.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? So I think it's definitely a good thing, and I personally just want it to continue like that, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know if you would like to just bring Parasite in right now, and we'll talk about the rest of this stuff after we're done with him, or what would you like to do?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, go ahead.
So, I mean, I'm gonna guess that pretty much anybody in this stream right now knows who Parasite is, but I did just want to do a quick little rundown of his most recent accomplishment before we do get him in this. So, for anybody who is new to Parasite, he was a world champion with Call of Duty back in Black Ops 2. Thank you, Stoney. And since then, so like I said, more recently in World War II, he finished 9th through 12th, playing for Ghost Gaming, most recent Call of Duty championship. He then qualified through the Las Vegas Open 2019 play-in, Pittsburgh Knights, then finished 13th through 16th at the Las Vegas Open event, again with Pittsburgh Knights, and then obviously went to the PLQ, where they finished 21 through 24th, again with Pittsburgh Knights, which is basically the end of Pittsburgh Knights. However, more recently, he has found his way onto a pro team within the league, which is actually Midnight Esports, where his team Lamagod, Saints, Blast, League Build, and Panda is their sub. So he is in the league, and that's something we're going to be talking about, of course. So without further ado, let me bring him in here. Plus, comes up stream because we didn't get this figured out before. Oh,
there we go.
So he said that he might not answer right away, just because he is in the middle of scrims as well. So he'll be joining hopefully though within the next couple of seconds.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I would like to just before he does join up, then touch on just looks like he just didn't accept. Just touch on the pools a little bit. I would like to, start with Pool A. Talk about Denial. I kind of felt with Denial, what you saw in the beginnings of the league, the 2 weeks they were there, that what you saw was what you got, and they were just gonna be the basement of the league throughout the extent. Coming out at Fort Worth, I don't know what happened. Personally, I didn't get to see their matches, but they beat UIU, they beat Heretics, and they were both teams that, we both predicted to be above them in the pool. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, obviously the game against UIU was definitely a close one, 3-2, so it did go all the way into map 5. However, they just blew Heretics out of the water, which, I mean, Heretics in general was, I think, somewhat surprising, obviously, considering how they were playing in the league compared to how they did at the tournament overall at Fort Worth. But then looking at that result compared to the rest of the results that Heretics got, it then doesn't look as surprising either. So
right, they kind of flip-flopped there. I kind of expected Denial to do what Heretics did and Heretics to do what Denial did.
Yeah.
Took me a second just to work that out in my brain, but yeah. Yeah, so then was there any other things for Pool A you wanted to mention? I just we went through that super quick.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Gen G coming out pretty much exactly how we expected. 3-0 in the pool. They went close against Heretics. Other than that, though, UIU won, Denial 3. Pretty straightforward there. UIU, I think those were the team that didn't do as well as I expected more than anything. I definitely expected them to better. They only took the 3-0 against Heretics when map 5 against lost 3-1 against Gen G. So I mean, overall, like I said, Gen G is exactly what we were expecting, but there was definitely a couple of things that were changed around from the rest of the board.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess jumping straight into Pool B, it was interesting the way this played out. So there was 3 teams that went 2-1, that being Red Reserve, E6, 100 Thieves. EG went 0-3. I was disappointed with them, to be completely honest. I expected them, with the addition of Attach, to turn things around. I really expected big things, but they fell short. They went 0-9 in map count. Bless you to whoever that was. And as opposed to Red, they came out hot. They really showed what they can do. I was very impressed with Red, and it was very interesting to me afterwards. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but I'm actually not sure if this was before the tournament or after, but Bance did announce that he was going to be a free agent. And then
yes.
Then one of the team members took to Twitter. I can't remember exactly who it was, but maybe Rated said that he wasn't a free agent and that actually they were trying to make things work as a team. So I'm very interested to see what kind of happens with them. I've also, from things that are occurring outside of Call of Duty, I've seen that Red's Reserve as an organization has completely folded, and they now solely have a Call of Duty team. That's the only thing that they do. So
really,
yeah,
I saw the Bance tweet about being an FA. I didn't really see anything after that. I know that their substitute is Sharks, who's obviously on Mind Freak, I believe. So it'd definitely be an interesting switch up. It's basically the opposite to what Parasite did, which we'll be talking about them later on as well. But yeah, like it's interesting. I don't know. I mean, at this point, I don't even want to say anything, because obviously we said what we said about Reciprocity and Dylan, and how I thought that maybe it wasn't. They should have looked a little longer to see what they could find. And I mean, hey, I should be on that one. Yeah, so it's definitely interesting to see, and they what's their overall performance?
Sorry, which team are you talking about right now?
Red Reserve, yeah, Division A, the 4-3. So in 4th place, they've got a 57% win ratio as far as like the series. So yeah, it's strange. I mean, again though, we saw Gen G obviously make their change at this point. Is anything surprising?
No. Exactly. No, nothing is surprising. And yeah, I guess EG just came out flat, and Attach did what he could, but things are not kind of working out the way that they were expected to.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I was definitely expecting EG to do a lot better. Obviously, we heard what BZ was saying last week about one of the big problems, obviously, being S&D, and Attach being a huge complement to that. But really, like 0-3, they only took 2 maps as well from that whole tournament. Well, from the group stages at least. Sorry, and that's not the kind of results that we were expecting to see from EG. In fact, I'm pretty sure I put EG pretty high in that group stage.
Yeah, you did. In fact, we both did.
Yeah, so pretty surprising, and the even more surprising than that, it was not even close games either. Like 100 Thieves 3-0'd them, Red Reserve 3-0'd them. The one that was close was against E6, where it went to game 5, but still.
Yeah, so I think the biggest upset for Pool B was definitely 100 Thieves, because even though they tied in match wins, they lost in map count, so ended up in the losers bracket, and I think that really cost them in the long run.
Yeah, for sure. Well, amongst a couple of other things,
I mean,
of course.
there was a lot of circumstances, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely unlucky, and I mean, so 100 Thieves, so the one that they lost was to Red Reserve, which Red Reserve obviously ended up top of the group. Red Reserve lost to 6. The difference was the fact that E6 Red Reserve game 5, so did 100 E6, and so the 100 Thieves Red Reserve won. Thieves lost 3-1, so obviously went down on the map count now. It's definitely unfortunate, but it is what it is. Honestly, like I think that the way this tournament ran, especially with like the amateur bracket being separate and everything, I think this was one of the best kind of ways that tournaments have been set up in a long time. So
yeah, and I think that's actually something we should touch on really quickly, that when you come out slow on the first couple of matches, as Optic did, which we'll touch on in a second, but there's no buffer, there's no open bracket team to come and you will just destroy 3-0. If you come out slow, then you come out slow, and there's no way fighting back, really.
Yeah,
which I think, we'll touch on it when we get to Pool D, but I think that really cost Optic. And then moving on to Pool C, Splice predictably came out first. They came second in the tournament, understandable. LG won the tournament, went second. I actually found this really interesting. I saw I think it was on Reddit yesterday, somebody said Pool C, the top 2 teams went first and second. The third and fourth 2 teams went top 16. So there was either it was a bust or break kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so obviously Splice and Luminosity, we all know how that turned out. They did really great throughout the whole tournament. It wasn't just starting off hot and going on a little bit backwards and forwards.
Hello.
And
hey.
Looks like
sorry about that. I was mid-map of a scrim.
No, that's all right. Don't worry.
No worries.
So
how you doing?
We good?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So we're live. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. Just getting some practice with my team, and I honestly forgot today was Wednesday. Like, I'm terrible. My bad. But
no,
I'm here.
All good. All good.
How are scrims going?
Okay, not bad.
Okay.
Just trying to get better as a team. Work out a lot of our kinks because we obviously didn't have the best performance at what was it, Fort Worth?
Yeah. So, I mean, we may as well jump straight into this, really. What were your initial reactions coming out of that? You did go 0-3 in pools, and then I believe you lost first round in losers, right?
Yeah. We had a good start. We took Splice to last map, and then after that, we just kind of just got smoked, to be honest. Going into the UIU series was more the same. Granted, Rasim was kind of sick at the event in the first 2 days. He wasn't really feeling well. Yeah. It didn't really matter. That's kind of just an excuse. We played really bad as a team. Granted, we didn't have much practice. I don't know. It just seemed like, I don't know, we just played terribly. Like, individually, a lot of our superstars didn't play up to expectations as they did, before on older teams.
Right. So do you think that's kind of what it boiled down to, just not having enough time as a unit, or you kind of want to make some changes, some role changes, or?
I mean, I'm not like one for excuses, but you can always like say there's a lot of factors into it. Considering myself, Saints, Blast, and Lacefield have not actually scrimmed. Like, prior to that, haven't actually scrimmed a single map for like a month and a half. Considering we've obviously not been on an AM team, we've been trying to get picked up by a pro team while everyone else was at the league or scrimming, with their Division A teams. We our Division A and B teams, we were just kind of sitting there. So we didn't really ever get practice. Any sort of practice that we got actually playing COD was playing like pickups and league play and pubs and wager matches. It wasn't anything, that involved working as a team with other players. You kind of just played, to shoot your gun. So that obviously didn't help. And then we only had like 5 days of practice realistically, and we probably only utilized like 3 of them due to people just obviously just being irresponsible and not waking up for scrims and stuff like that. which is kind of sad considering we were gifted the opportunity. But after our poor performance at this event, I'm hoping that everyone kind of gets their head right, and we start grinding as a team, because if we perform like that, then we're not winning a single series at the cross division.
Right.
Yeah, I think obviously one of the big things that a lot of people kind of took note on was some of the things that were said on Twitter just within the first couple of days of you guys starting to team, right? About some of the guys not waking up on time, just not even sleeping before scrims and stuff like that. So do you think that having gone to this event and performed the way you did, do you think that this is going to be something that's going to be helpful and help you turn things around?
I mean, you would think that that's the case. I mean, only time will tell whether that happens or not. I mean, I never really had a problem with it, so I just kind of, I'm going to keep doing what I continue to do for our team, and just hope that everyone else continues to, or starts putting in the effort and really showing that they're not going to take this opportunity for granted, because regardless if you got on a pro league team now, the pressure's there. April 5th is the next roster window, and that's careers on the line for myself, other players, other teams, or even people are sitting still, outside in the background, like Celium, players like that. Obviously that FaZe Black team, there's people on Mind Freak, and there's people, on those open bracket teams that would be, grateful to have an opportunity like this. And that, also is and also there's going to be the players that obviously get shifted around between, the other league teams. So I don't know. Hopefully everyone just, does what needs to be done, improves not only as individuals, but, as a team, and we perform better at cross division.
Yeah, I mean, one thing's for sure, obviously we've already seen that nobody's safe, right?
Yeah, no one's safe. I mean, you saw Cap. He's a two-ring champion, very accoladed, and he got dropped on his neck. So who knows what happens with him, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's another big thing, right? Is the people, whether it's on your team or people on other teams, that are going to start slacking off. I think seeing that somebody like Jacob being dropped is that in itself should be a big eye opener. To show, obviously, like we just said, nobody is safe. So people really need to start putting in those hours and putting in a lot more practice. So
yeah, I agree.
So you obviously were sitting out for the first period of the Pro League and didn't qualify. When did you hear that Midnight was making a change and you wanted to reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? How did this kind of roster form? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, going into the roster mania situation, there was I had some options with teams potentially trying to get rid of their teams and formulate new teams, and they were going to kind of give me the free reins of that. It wasn't. I can't really say who it was. But anyway, that ended up falling through because through to improvements, they ended up playing better, and it was good for them. But then it came about that Accelerate obviously played really freaking bad. So they got in a situation where they were kind of looking to do the same thing. And we were kind of looking at rosters that we could put together on that team. And then we heard about the whole Midnight situation and, stuff with their contracts and blah, 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 blah. And then rumors started, surfacing that they signed Saints and that all this stuff was happening with their roster. And then it ended up happening that they ended up all leaving or getting dropped. And then that's when kind of two opportunities ended up opening them up. And towards the last 3 days of Roster Mania, I had the opportunity to either play with Accelerate or play with Midnight. And it was just a question of who I wanted to play for and what they had to offer. And the team that I could have played on with Accelerate would have been with Brack and Jet Li and those guys. And then the team that I could have put together on Midnight was with Llama, Saints, and then whoever they wanted to play with. And our roster just kind of ended up getting formed. We tried to get Decimate and Pharaoh, but they ended up wanting to sit out. So we ended up playing with myself, Lace, Blast, Llama, and Saints. And that's kind of how I landed on this team.
Nice. Yeah, I obviously tuned into your stream last night for a little bit, and I think one of the first things I heard you say was, "Oh shit, I'm on Midnight," and then there was like whoever it was that you were playing with was like, "What?" And I remember you saying like, "Well, yeah, like it was between Accelerate and Midnight. I forgot for a second who it was that I actually joined."
Yeah, something like that.
So we want to kind of run through obviously some of the stuff that happened at Fort Worth and everything else, but one of the things that we do typically start off with is kind of a question that we've somewhat adapted from. I don't know if you watch Hex's podcast, Eavesdrop.
I very seldomly watch. I think the only one I really watched was the Killa one. I do want to get around to watching the one he did with Aches, but I haven't got around to it.
Fair enough. So yeah, we usually start off by pretty much asking somewhat similar question of who you are today.
Well, I'm a competitive Call of Duty player. I'm a professional for Midnight Gaming. I've been playing competitive Call of Duty for 10 years, basically since the infancy of the esport. I've won a world championship. I've won 7 total championships in my career so far, and although my career kind of has gone down the drain, I've been working really hard to build that back up, not only in my gameplay but in my attitude, my reputation outside of just playing. That's me in a nutshell.
So this was something I kind of wanted to finish the interview on, but since you bring it up, I'm kind of curious. Like, did definitely have a reputation for being kind of somewhat toxic, definitely in like the Black Ops 2 kind of pre-Black Ops 2 kind of era. Like, do you feel like you've changed that, and what have you done to try to kind of change that stigma that you faced?
Well, I think there's like 2 different ways that people see me as toxic. Some people say I'm just a bad teammate, and there's people just like I like to talk shit. And yeah, I like to talk shit. I'm a very I'm a very animated person. Like I like talking stuff, like talking shit, like in game. Like that's just the type of person I am. Like if I see, somebody not playing well on a certain team, or I see, somebody just not being very good, I'm not afraid to kind of say that. Like, but in terms of the toxicity as a teammate, I've tried to kind of fix my reputation as being a toxic teammate. I've taken a lot of strides to be a better teammate, just not rage as much. Try to build up my teammates. Try to push them into being better teammates, and also just improving my communication and such like that. That's kind of what I tried to change. I don't think I'll ever change being a shit talker. Like I think it's good to have shit talk in the scene. I think it's good to just have banter. It's fun. It's good for social media. People love it. The scene loves it. But outside of that, I'm gonna keep trying to be as best a teammate as I possibly can.
So do you feel like you've kind of taken on this role because it's what the scene needs a little bit?
No, that's just kind of who I've always been. Like, yeah.
That's fair.
Okay, so we did already kind of touch on some of the pool play that went down obviously at Fort Worth. We basically went over Pool A, Pool B. Do you have anything that you want to kind of touch on? Like, what are your thoughts on those 2 pools and how they played out?
Pool A and B. I don't even remember which pool was which, to be honest. I think was B our pool.
So no, so Pool A was Gen G, Denial, UIU, and Team Heretics.
Oh yeah, that's actually I was actually really surprised to see Denial make it out into winners, and to see Heretics, make losers. That was actually quite a big surprise. I wasn't really surprised to see Gen G do well. I thought that what's his name? Envoy was going to be a really good addition to their team. With a lot more practice, I think those guys will be, top 4 or top 3 contenders. They're very talented, very good at search and destroy. Envoy brings a lot to respawn. So they just got to get more practice in their belt and establish some sort of consistency within their respawn gameplay, and win those search and destroys, because obviously they didn't really have the best search and destroy event. That's when they finally started losing searches after going on that like S&D win spree.
Crazy.
But I'm sure
Yeah.
they'll build that back up. And at the end of the day, S&D is not like really a consistent game mode. Like, I mean, Call of Duty isn't in general. Like, it's all about showing up on that day. And for them to have that bad of a S&D event, I don't think that'll happen again for that team.
Right.
Right.
And then Pool B, excuse me, would be Red, E6, 100 Thieves, and EG. Did you expect more from EG? I expected Attach to kind of bring them up a lot more than he kind of was able to.
No, I honestly didn't really expect much more of them. Like I said,
Okay.
I don't think that that was a one player problem. I think that
Okay.
team is kind of just riddled with consistency issues in general. Attach did play very well, but as you saw, like a lot of them still kind of struggled. And they actually probably had the most practice out of the roster change teams, from what I remember, because they kind of been scrimming since their end of their division. I think they were Division A, and they kind of started picking up Attach and scrimming with them beforehand, even though they didn't announce it till like right before. So I just don't think that one player changes anything for that team. They did have some close series, but at the end of the day, I mean, the scores of the matches, like 3-0s, 3-1s, whatever, they were all kind of still in the same boat as they were with their old team.
Right.
I think that team just needs to either just get better, obviously, or they need to make way more than one change for them to be good.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
And then Pool C, we had Splice, LG, Accelerate, and then you guys. Did you kind of what did you expect going into like the Splice and LG games? You know, obviously Splice is a top 2 team at this point. LG is right up there. Did you know this is going to be a super tough pool?
I mean, obviously, looking at it, it was going to be a hard pool. LG improved massively, and Splice has always been obviously a really good team. Our team going up to the event, we didn't have much practice, and the practice that we did have was very bad. So I knew that if we did any sort of decent at the event, it would just have to come through individual performances from like our superstars, I guess, and like players like Saints, Lace, and Blast, who are just very, very aggressive and very explosive players. But unfortunately, as you guys kind of saw, that really wasn't the case. Everyone was kind of just playing really poorly, and we ended up just getting smoked in the majority of our matches. But Splice and LG were obviously the two finalists. So in hindsight, we did have a pretty difficult pool because we had the finalists in our pool, which is kind of funny because that kind of happened to me in Vegas too. We had Optic and Splice. I mean, Splice was in the final then, but they were in the top 3. And it's just kind of crazy how the pools draw out for me back-to-back events.
Yeah, that's something that we were touching on, is the fact that, you know, the way that pool turned out is the top 2 were literally the ones who obviously went and to the final, and then the bottom 2 were obviously the one top 16 basically, right? So yeah, certainly a tough group overall, and like you said, the biggest thing is obviously the practice that you guys got to have compared to all the rest of the team.
Yeah, I mean, Accelerate was kind of the same boat. We formulated our teams, and they still smoked us. So, I mean, looking back at it, I mean, we just played terribly. Like, I don't think the practice did have something to do with it, but at the end of the day, like, we came and just were flat. Like, really, like it was really, 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 really bad. Like you've just never seen players like, Saints, Lacefield, and like have that bad of an event. I don't think that'll happen again, but who knows? Time will tell. Obviously, like I said, it's a little bit different though, because most of that Accelerate roster has been scrimming, has been playing league matches. Obviously, leading up until their roster changed, while my whole team, including myself, besides Llama, hasn't really scrimmed anything prior to us forming a team. Like, we have been literally sitting there for a month and a half collecting dust, waiting to play.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Accelerate.
Say again.
Sorry, I was just gonna say Accelerate had that core that they kind of brought over from Midnight, whereas you just kind of.
I mean, yeah, they had a core from like 2 different teams, and then they added Skies. So, like I said, I mean, at the end of the day, regardless, it's no excuse. I still expected our team to do better, to obviously win more than 2 maps. Like, I've never ever had that happen to me at an event in my life, so it was just kind of, a surprise.
For sure.
Right.
And so for yourself, though, would you say that it's more fuel to the fire?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I hope that's like a wake up call for players on our team. Our team is very our team. I mean, people might not know this, but like they're just like our team has like big heads on our team. Like they're just like really like argumentative or like egotistical, and they pride themselves in their individual talent. And for them to play that bad, I think will be a wake up call for everyone.
Right. Awesome. And so moving on to the last pool, we had Reciprocity, Envy, Optic, and United.
Optic, United, or Reciprocity. I didn't think United was going to play that bad. I think those guys are obviously a lot better than the way they played. Reciprocity had Dylan, and I'm a big fan of Dylan. That guy's disgusting, so I wasn't really surprised to see them play a lot better than they did with Dens. But for them to make the top three and really be on that verge of that final was actually pretty crazy. Good for them. Good for them on that. Optic, I don't know. I have mixed opinions about that team. I think they kind of were very complacent, and obviously not having practice with Dashi in the league kind of hurt them.
Yeah.
But I've like been saying it like ever since like Damon was the Ruin player. I don't think it's very smart to have your Ruin player run a MaDaC. I think it's like counterproductive, especially with the way the meta is now, where you can actually like stack more perks if you run a SOG as Ruin or Battery. And for them not to have that one extra player running that and being more aggressive and getting in up close, like there's no point in you running Ruin at that point because you're using it to get in up close situations. And if you don't have a SOG, it's just really counterproductive, in my opinion. So, I mean, that team was just, I think, just kind of got a wake up call. They're obviously changing their roles, and they're going to get more practice in with Dashi now that they're obviously playing together.
Yeah.
So I think they'll
play
better.
I think one thing that a lot of people expected, especially having done that pre-LAN and everything else, I think a lot of people were really expecting them to, obviously with that practice and specifically on LAN against the likes of Splice and 100 Thieves and Heretics, I think everybody was expecting a lot more from them at that point, but it obviously didn't work out that way whatsoever. And you know, we did predictions last week when we had BZ on the show. I don't think any of us predicted Optic and United to be the bottom two of that division.
No, actually, I literally predicted this pool to be flipped. Everything be the opposite. So,
yeah.
Do you? What are your expectations for United going forward? Obviously, they, they removed Cap. What do you expect from them now?
I mean, I don't know. I honestly, it's a question mark. I mean, like I said, they were tweeting about how they got like some of the best practice they ever got in, right before the event, and they came out and were flat. So, it's just, I mean, it's COD. At the end of the day, everything's a wild card. You never know how things can go. But Simp is a very talented player. I'm interested to see how he performs. At the top of the chain.
Right.
So moving forward into the interdivisional play, you have a couple of tough matchups. What are your? I mean, obviously playing more together. Is there anything more that outside of the game that you guys are planning on doing, or is it all literally on the map? So you're just going to be just getting more practice together, or is there other stuff as well?
Well, we have a while to kind of prepare since we are the second week of Cross Division. So for now, we're just focused on getting in as much practice as possible, and specifically also getting S&D practice in because we didn't really get any at all. We didn't get any at all before the event. We barely got any sort of control scrims. Like it was just really, 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 really slow. Like the only like game mode we really practiced was Hardpoint, and that's when we had our closest maps versus most of the teams. And then everything else, it was like we were just getting blown out for the most part.
Right. And I'm kind of curious, is dry runs something that you kind of do in Call of Duty? Like just going into a map and just practicing setups, or is that not made its way into Call of Duty yet?
No, it's never really been a thing.
Okay.
Everyone kind of focuses on repetition and playing other players and practicing by experience.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you necessarily know what I mean by that.
Say again?
Like, do you know what I mean by dry running, like a strat?
Yeah, like we just like spawn in, like practice, like where we're gonna go.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And kind of execute as if people were there, but with obviously no one there.
Right. I mean, it's something that's pretty common in Counter-Strike, so I was just kind of curious if that was something that moved into Call of Duty yet.
No, I don't think anyone really does that, to be honest.
So yeah, I was just looking through it here. So yeah, your first match is against Splice, and that's on the 1st of April. So obviously, you just mentioned, well, we just mentioned about how well Splice obviously did at Fort Worth. So what is it that you guys are going to be looking on improving between now and then to be able to go ahead and fight against them?
Well, we took them last map last time, so hopefully improve on that and win. But obviously, we have a lot of footage to look over when we play them, so we can do a better job of looking at their vetoes and seeing what they're very strong at and what they're weak at. But obviously, things can change within that time period. They're obviously going to be practicing just like we are, so who knows? But it can definitely help, and we're going to definitely take a look at that, obviously, when we have the time to.
Is that something that you as a team do, like the VOD review, the kind of theater review?
I mean, we like to. Whether we do it or not, I don't know yet. We're just kind of not really there yet with our team.
Okay. I don't know if you're kind of looking at the chat, but some of your teammates are in the chat. It's very funny, kind of watching them talk about you in the chat.
They're just trolling.
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's just funny kind of scene. So I don't know if it was yesterday or earlier today that you kind of were talking about KD and was it interactions per minute? I didn't necessarily see the clip. I just kind of saw what happened on Twitter.
It was a score per minute. So someone did a graph of like all the players on like the list, and I was just pointing out how me and Octane were the only two main ARs that were on the top right, which is the high score per minute and high high KD, basically meaning that we are translating our kills into score or objective points. And I was saying that basically all the other like ARs on the other side were kind of just slow, and like those are like the type of players. I mean, there's different play styles that people have. Some people like to kind of just watch over their teammates and hope they kind of slide in and do what they have to do on the map. And then there's other players that are more progressive on the map. And I was just talking about how like all those other players are really slow. I mean, you can kind of see it if you're not getting a lot of score, but your KD's high. That means you're just kind of you're getting like, I mean, this is all speculation because obviously you don't watch the matches. This is just based on the stats, but you're getting like useless kills. Right. You're getting a lot more useless kills on the map than someone that has more score, which is why you typically see, impactful players have high score per minute.
Right.
And you have less impactful players have low score per minute. But it's just stats at the end of the day. It's not like a really, given, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I guess some players took a little bit of offense to what you were saying. I mean, when you phrase it like that, that is definitely true what you're saying. Like I said, I didn't see the clip of what you were talking about on stream, but it does kind of make sense when you phrase it like that. So
I was just going to kind of add on to that. So obviously we were talking about it before about how you've obviously tried to change as far as like the toxicity that people always label you with. I personally think that you definitely have done a lot of things and you've changed quite significantly. How is it though that you seem to always find yourself with, whenever you put any kind of opinion out there, somebody always has something to argue against you with? Do you think it's just because it's you?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I honestly think that some players could say the same exact thing that I say it, and people will, look the other way. But when I say it, it's a problem. Or like you can even say it like the same thing where people are just, saying banter or joking around. Some people like let's say Method says something, right? People will be like, haha, it's Methods. But then like if I say the exact same thing, they'll be like, wow, dude, this guy's a dickhead, like type thing. So, I mean, it just comes with the reputation. People just take more offense to you because they view you a certain way. That's that's how it is in real life. Like obviously, if one of your friends says something to you, even if it's like somewhat like an insult, you're gonna take it as a joke. While if somebody else says something to you that you don't know or you don't respect, you're gonna be pissed. That's just how life is.
Right. Definitely. So, kind of going back a little bit, when Pittsburgh Knights, we've kind of had two different perspectives from Beasy and Vandy, the coach of UIU, what their perspective of the qualification process was. How was that for you as Pittsburgh Knights? Did you feel good going into that? How was that team? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, we definitely felt good. Obviously, we didn't really expect that our whole team or our whole pool was going to qualify. Obviously, besides us and what was it, Mazer or something like that. We didn't really expect that to happen. We didn't know how competitive our pool was actually going to be. But the qualification process was good, but obviously there's no like flawless way of qualifying for certain things. There's always going to be upsets. There's always going to be stacked pools, stacked groups, stacked brackets. Like it just happens. Like sometimes it's pretty obvious, when you look at a pool or look at a bracket, like that one side is better than the other. And then some you kind of just figure out after the tournament's over. In hindsight, you're like, wow, that was a very competitive pool. That sucked. Like, and that's kind of what happened with us. Like, it just ended up being, a pool of pure passion. And like, it was actually kind of unfortunate that like the teams, well, two of the teams that were basically topping their division were in our pool now. And then three, you also have that slow start from Team Space at the event, well, Gen G now. And then they ended up bringing it back, which kind of allowed other teams to kind of take advantage of that and get higher on the pool than when they started making their comeback, if that makes sense. So like if they played like the way they played towards the end of the tournament through the whole pool, then it could have been a completely different outcome. But for them to start so slow and give other teams wins, then obviously start playing better towards the end and compete or beating the other teams that were obviously making a run early, that kind of just is what kind of screwed up the pool for the most part, in my opinion.
Right.
But that's just, it is what it is. I mean, they earned their qualification spot. Those teams did. We threw some of our series, some of our maps, and ended up biting us in the ass when we didn't qualify.
Right. What is your opinion on the kind of overall structure of the CWL this year? I know there's a lot less tournaments than there has been previously. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I really wish there was more open events. Open events are a blast, and they're just really good competition, really good practice for like the league. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, those open events, there are a lot of prize money, but they don't really mean anything because your league standing doesn't change, your seed doesn't change, your qualification for champs is not based on your open tournament performances. At the end of the day, they're really fun and they're really good opportunities to compete.
Right.
So do you think that the way that Fort Worth was just set up is a better structure than how they traditionally have been, where we have the open bracket and the top teams come into the championship bracket? Or do you think that, like I said, the way Fort Worth was set up was the better route?
I mean, it kind of sucks for the AMs that obviously don't get to play against pro teams if they make it far in the tournament. So I know teams like FaZe Black and teams like, even like a Pander's team and who else, Mind Freak and Sween, all those guys would have loved to, make a run for the actual title. But at the end of the day, for the pros, it's a lot better. Like there's way less delays. Schedules are just great. You get actually way more rest at tournaments now. There wasn't any 10 a.m. matches from what I remember. I think the latest matches started was like at 2. So everyone had a lot of time to rest, a lot of time to not like enjoy themselves at the event, a lot of time to practice if you obviously wanted to show up early and play, scrims versus other teams. So I think like at the open events, for the most part, everyone didn't really have an excuse in terms of just being on time, 2 getting enough rest, and just being ready like for your matches. There was never any sort of hurry. There was never any sort of delays where people were just getting iced for hours and hours. Like at Vegas, we ended up playing Accelerate at like 10 or noon. And then our next match, which ended up being our losers bracket match, first round of losers, wasn't until 2 a.m. or like 1 a.m. sometime around there. So we had like a 12-hour wait before we had to play a match. So like stuff like that isn't going to happen anymore because the open bracket and the open bracket like pool play teams are kind of cut out. So everything's really easy to schedule.
obviously it looks like we're heading towards franchising and everything else, and I think, you know, we kind of touched on this in previous episodes with Vandy, but looking around at other esports and things like that, we don't see many other esports that have these open bracket plays that have such like big sponsors involved and everything else, right? So I think in terms of that, it's something that is probably for the best, but like you said, it's kind of, it depends on who you speak to, right? If you're in a pro team, it's fantastic. If you're in an amateur team, it's one of those things where you want to play against the pros, but you also have to make your way up to be able to play.
For sure. If you look at like every other esport, there's a qualification process for everything. If you want to play against pro teams, or if you want to be a pro player, there's a qualification process for it. It's not just like you show up. Billy Bob shows up at a tournament and has the tournament of his life and ends up getting to play Optic first round just to get 3-0'd. Like,
right?
Yeah.
How would you feel about like, I can't think of the word, kind of like a B league? So it's like a feeder league, you know, maybe like relegation and something like that. How would you feel about that sort of setup?
I mean, that'd be cool to have like like some sort of like semi-pro league,
right?
But that's a step in the future that I hope they do.
Right.
All right, well, that's gonna do it for me, guys. I gotta get back to my practice. If that's cool with you guys.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for taking the time. Just quickly before you go, one last quick question. Where can people find you? What like, where can they follow you? What are your social medias?
Just follow me on Twitter. My Twitter is Parasite, or follow my stream, also Parasite on Twitch.
All right, perfect. Again, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
All right, have a good one, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Chris.
Too.
Bye.
Wow.
All right.
Were you kind of following what was going on in the chat while we were having this discussion?
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I'm gonna just straight up say that you definitely went ahead and carried most of that, because I was definitely following the chat more than anything. Yeah, you guys are hilarious.
Shout out to all
especially with.
Sorry, I was just going to say shout out to all the pro players that are just coming in here talking shit to Parasite. Like that's fucking hilarious.
No, it was fantastic. So really appreciate it. I also just want to give a huge shout out to everybody who's been following the stream as well. We've had a whole bunch of people: Arsenal, 5411, It's Dropshot, iCurly, Lizard18, JReal_US, Exalty, Sky has also followed the stream, and Ojulicious. Thank you all.
I would like to just take a moment right now just to plug our sponsor, the wonderful Audible. I don't know if our viewers have ever heard of them, if you ever listened to them, but I don't know the exact number. I'm going to go out on a limb and say hundreds of thousands of audiobooks available for free. All you have to do is go to audibletrial.com/the CWL podcast. You get 1 month free. You get to download one audiobook plus 2 Audible originals. You can listen on your phone. You can listen pretty much anywhere, and you get 1 month free. It's why would you not listen? Why would you not go there? Again, audibletrial.com/the CWL podcast. Whew, I can take a breath.
Yeah, so awesome. So that was obviously really great having Chris on and talking about some of the stuff that has been going on in the past, and obviously more recently with him, and then obviously his thoughts on what happened at CWL Fort Worth. Now, I know one of the things that we wanted to kind of go a little bit more in depth on was also the bracket play, obviously, at Fort Worth, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's just jump straight back into this, I guess. So,
yeah,
one of the biggest heartbreaks for me, and I'm definitely know for you as a 100 Thieves fan, 100 Thieves, they just closed the pool outcomes. Whatever they went in the pools,
2-1.
Sorry, say that again.
2-1.
2-1. They drop into losers because of the map differential. They go on a run. They went into losers round 1. They went all the way to losers semifinals. And do you want to kind of explain what happened with the roster?
Yeah, well, even going back a little bit, I think just saying that they went all the way through to the semifinals is crediting exactly what they did. So losers round 1, they play against E United, which obviously again we were expecting them to actually become top of their pool. They 3-1 them, then went on to play against Denial, who again we already mentioned came out hot in the group play, and they 3-0'd them. Then went up against Heretics, which again we were expecting them to do great in the pool play. They've been crushing it throughout the whole of the actual Pro League in Division A, and 3-0'd them. Then went up against E6, who were in that Pool B, who came second in their pool. So again, they actually came above 100 Thieves and Evil Geniuses. 3-1 them, and then during that series, so they were 2-0 up in the series, and after that second map, Preston, Prestini, sorry, not Prestini, Priester, basically dropped his controller, puked on stage. The stream was just stopped for a good like half hour, I think, if not longer. And they ended up having to get Pharaoh, who was in the initial starting lineup for this roster, ended up getting dropped to a substitute role when Priester and Crowder, came onto the roster as the coach, and yeah, huge props to him for basically, from what I understand, sprinting from the hotel to the venue to kind of pick up that space that obviously Priester couldn't fulfill because of not be feeling well. But yeah, so they went on to play the third map. Obviously was Control on Arsenal, I believe. Yeah, so map 3, Frequency Control. They went and lost that one 0-3, so was not looking good whatsoever to start with. However, then went on to Arsenal Hardpoint, so that's where I got the Arsenal from. Map 4, and they actually won that one 250 to 173. So good win. Started to look okay, maybe this could work out, even though they're playing with the guy that they literally dropped. Went on to play against Reciprocity then in the semifinals of the losers bracket, and yeah, it didn't go too well at all. So Arsenal Hardpoint was the first map, so literally going back into the map that they just won. They lost that one 252 to 234, so still pretty close. Next map, Gridlock S&D, they lost that one 6-2, not very close. Then back to Arsenal for a control map, which they actually ended up winning 3-2, where Kenny had gone off at the end of the game. I believe he went on a 5-kill streak and just single-handedly tore Reciprocity apart, basically. And then Seaside Hardpoint, they lost 250 to 217. So really, it was just the S&D, I guess, that wasn't very close, but still, like, it wasn't the same team, right? Basically those small margins of losses that they had on the Hardpoint were the differences that they had with Priester.
I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking, really. Like this was their tournament to win, really. Really turned it around in the end of the league play. They looked great in groups. They looked great going into the bracket. I think, was it which, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the team that they lost 3-1 to in the groups, whichever team that was,
like 100 Thieves.
Yes.
Red Reserve.
Right. If they just lost game 5, if they lost 3-2, that would have put them in winners. That would have given them that extra cushion going into the bracket. You know, you can lose 2 series rather than just losing the 1, and that, I think they could have, you know, fixed their mistakes after the first loss and made another run in losers, but they just didn't have that cushion. They just fell into losers, and then that's kind of what happens, which is kind of heartbreaking all around. But you can't have a losers, otherwise, you know, it's just going to go on forever, really. But, yeah, it was really heartbreaking. Moving back a little bit, I did want to jump in onto 100 Thieves just because they were the kind of the hot topic, really.
Yep.
Optic lost to Gen.G. They beat EG. I'm just getting all these Gs right. They beat EG, losers round 1. I believe that was a 3-0. They lost to Gen.G, losers round 2.
Yeah.
Gen.G then
Lost to Parasite.
Right.
So.
United lost to 100 Thieves. Like, those 3 teams that we've just mentioned, Optic, EU, and 100 Thieves, that was my top 3, really. And Splice would have been the top 4. Like, it's just mind-blowing. One lost in losers round 1, one lost in losers round 2.
Yeah, I mean, so again, obviously we did these predictions last week. I tried to change things up so that we weren't just predicting the same things, and I'm pretty sure my one of my changes up anyway, was LG just not doing well whatsoever and being bottom of their pool. Did not happen.
Yeah. I mean, LG was my surprise of the tournament. I don't know if you looked at the notes that I wrote, but my 2 surprises were Dylan on Reciprocity and LG. Just,
right.
I feel like, so this is my hope. LG, they dropped JCap. They've now won 2 events since they dropped him. I'd have to go back and look at the dates of whatever happened. But anyway, they won 2 events since they dropped him. Now, United dropped JCap. Are they about to win 2 events? That's kind of my hope. Anyway, that's kind of going off on a sidetrack. But LG, yeah, they played fantastic the whole way through.
Only one.
I really expected Splice to take it in the finals, but you can't take it away from them.
I mean, so just looking through it, so Splice obviously did come out on top when it came to the
I'll be back in just 1 second.
Pool play. Yeah, for sure. So Splice did come out on top of them into pool play. Splice actually beat them 3-1 in that matchup during Pool C. Then obviously they played 2 more other times after that. The first being in the winners bracket final, which LG won 3-1, and then again in the grand final, which again 3-1. I was just saying, Sam, basically they played 3 times, LG and Splice, in that tournament. Splice won in the pool play, and then LG won 3-1 both times after that in the finals and the grand finals. So,
yeah,
obviously LG just making it happen when it counts more than anything, right?
It's hard to say, but I think 2 of the big things that really helped them with that was Slack.
Yeah.
He has been very much underperforming in the league. He has taken a lot of flack, and Ricky, just the coach, you could only assume that he has really helped them bounce back from the pool play loss and beat them twice in the bracket, twice in the bracket, excuse me.
Yeah, no, exactly. And so going back to what you were saying as well about the events that they've won since dropping Jacob. So both Nifty and McLean John mentioned it in the chat. So it has only been 1 event. And looking at it here, so yeah, that Fort Worth was the only event that they without him, and they only actually played 1 other event without him, which was the Las Vegas Open, where they finished 4th place.
So let's hope a similar trend happens to United, at least for my opinions, because my bias towards United. Anyway, so I'd like to.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just looking at Georgie in the background. I'd like to talk about Dylan for a second. Dylan Card.
Yeah.
He played amazing at the PLQ with Team Sween, I believe. They failed to qualify, obviously. They were absolutely one of the teams that they were just on the cusp. I really expected them to do well. He comes onto the main Reciprocity roster in place of Dens, and he was just destroying everybody.
Yeah.
It was interesting, actually, on one of the trading shots, hot shots. What's that show called that the MLG does?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's trading shots.
Yeah. I'm not sure if it was that show or a different show that they do. Anyway, somebody mentioned, I believe it was Pac-Man said, doesn't think that one player can really turn around a roster. That's the exact opposite of what Dylan just did to Reciprocity. It was
Dylan basically heard that and was like, you know what? Let me prove you wrong.
let me show you what I can do.
He sure did that. Yeah. Just so looking through it right here. So he World League Championship 2018 qualifiers. He played for a team called Brash and qualified with them. Then went to the championship and placed 17th through 24th. So he was in the money, but great placing. So Benji, Drill, Neville, and Dylan. Any of those people, really.
Right.
And then moving on, the next time he played was at the Las Vegas Open event for Team Sween. Like you said, they placed 5th through 6th there, and then qualifier he placed 13th through 14th, also all the way up to 3rd place with Fort Worth.
Right. I just want to just quickly jump in here that something McLean John Rec can't live in Game 5. They want to win, and I absolutely agree with you. But what I will say is they just made this change, and given what a beast Dylan is, I can kind of see dragging everyone up with them. So I personally predict them having much less Game 5s going forward, as they can improve their control and their hard point as a team, rather than just relying on taking one of the respawns and 2 of the S. I mean, that is definitely true what he said, but I can see them not having to do that in the future.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at it here, they went just in bracket play alone. They played against UIU in round 2, Game 5, Genji in round 3, Game 5, round 4, Red Reserve, Game 5, beat 100 Thieves 3-1, and then losers bracket finals against Splice Wing. So that's what, 4 out of 5 games. They went Game 5 and and actually, sorry, and also even in pool play, Optic Game 5 and Envy Game 5. So and United Game 5, but they lost that one.
Right. I mean, it shows that it can go either way, really. But I will say that I believe. So just talking about that matchup between Rec and Optic. Sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here. I know. I'm sorry about that, but just Rec and Optic. I will say that Tommy always plays Optic teams close.
Yes,
and I do love those matchups.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a constant toss up for me, at least, because we obviously know Tommy, and I personally was an Optic fan. I'm more of a Thieves fan at this point, but so it was one of those things for years that, you know, every time it'd be fantastic because I'd be in a position where I'd be able to kind of talk a bit of shit to him, and every single time he would go out there and just beat them. So,
right.
Yeah, like you said, no, you definitely can't fault him in that.
Yeah. Sorry, my mind's a little jumbled at the moment. Just one more thing, just coming from the chat. Nifty says, I don't see them getting. And, you know, as I kind of mentioned earlier, I do kind of disagree with that, but we'll kind of see what happens. You know, they do have more time to play with Dylan, but they are playing against 15 of the best teams in the entire world. So,
yeah,
we'll see. And that was kind of my last note about Fort Worth. I don't know if you wanted to delve a little deeper into any of those matchups that we mentioned, or
not really. I mean, we've basically covered it all. I think the main thing was, like we were saying earlier on, the whole tournament was not something that a lot of people were expecting. I think it was a fantastic tournament. It's really going to show us. It's really something that shows us what have to come throughout the rest of the year. We should be expecting a lot more top tier gameplay and some really close matchups and a lot of upsets. So I'm hoping that that's the way things continue. And
yeah, so there is one more topic I just want to touch on before we kind of close out the show here. Sorry.
Yeah, very true.
As George just mentioned in chat, what we got to remember is that Rec had under a week to practice. Yeah, exactly. And Dylan, I don't believe until he was picked up, I don't think he was living in Vegas. So I'm sure there was even a couple of days there where they weren't living in the same continent, let alone.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah, because I mean, so they were in Division A, so they definitely did have more time than people like Parasite's team, for example, and Accelerate did. But yeah, it's the fact that he wasn't living there. I still don't think they had that much practice. Certainly not as much as they would have liked.
Right. So last thing I kind of want to touch on for the evening is Armour, JCap, and Clayster, two absolute veterans of the scene. And, you know, JCap has seen a little bit of a fall in performance recently. I don't necessarily know if that's his fault or the position and the roles that the team has put him into. But he has been dropped. He has been, benched, technically. And they did bring in Simp. Yeah. Anyway, so they did.
Who just won the open bracket, I believe, right?
Yeah, so I believe the Codburner, I don't know if you followed the Codburner on. Basically, he mentioned something about JCap wanting Clayster dropped and going to the other three members of the team and to the manager, I would assume, to try and. Sorry, something just mentioned in chat just caught my eye. Anyway, so they wanted Clayster dropped, and the Codburner mentioned that they thought that JCap was brainwashing his teammates, which is a term that's kind of stuck in my mind a little bit. The term brainwashing, it's not really something you hear. Anyway, so I just want to jump in, talk about what exactly has been said here. JCap kind of said, trying to drop you was not all just me. The idea didn't even cross my mind until I heard the others talking about it first. I didn't think it was a good idea to make this public since we were still teaming.
Right.
The conversation gets a little disjointed because I'm reading this from a news article rather than directly from the tweets, but Clay responds by saying, I mean, shit happened before, we worked it out, didn't play well at Fort Worth, a change was made. I really got nothing else to say on the situation. I explained it for the most part already. Only thing is, I'd appreciate you stop calling me the burn off, pure speculation, blah, blah, blah. That's kind of not relevant to what we're talking about. Cap does go on to say, I actually considered last night why I was pissed off with you in all of this. Realistically, the decision to bench me was 100% Burns, which is interesting the way United kind of controls the roster. That's maybe another topic for another day, but comes to the realization that I just don't like you anymore. You're the most arrogant, self-centered person I've ever met. Pair that with the fact you're consumed by trying to have all the fans like you, hence your quote about manipulating COD Reddit that I tweeted yesterday, and you've turned into an absolute horrible teammate over the past few years since I've teamed with you in AW. Then Cap does go onto Reddit. Just trying to pull up the exact quote here.
Yeah, I mean, that itself is a very powerful statement for JCap. You don't see many things like that being said out in the open a lot of the time, and especially by some of these more prestigious and well-known pros at this point, right? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago from the likes of Crim6, but not too much anymore.
Yeah, so Cap does say, this is taken from Reddit. He says, he's selfish, stats. You guys think he trolls during practice for highlight reels and entertaining rather than getting better as a team. He's told people behind the scenes that I tried to get him dropped by getting everyone on board for it when that wasn't really what happened, Pro players have known this all for years. That's why he constantly has beef with people and gives his opinion on situations always that have nothing to do with him. And there's also very few of his former teammates that will say behind closed doors that they like teaming with him because it's been the same since AEW. It's all led me to a point where I don't like the person he is anymore. I'm not being a smartass here, but genuinely, what other questions are there to answer? I thought my tweets covered this as a whole, and if I were to go into examples and stories, it'd be way more tweets. Maybe this is more shit talking, but again, it's simply the truth, and just about every pro knows it. He just has you guys fooled talking to Reddit, and there is just one more little thing I want to read right here. Sorry, it's a long segment, I know. But it is very interesting, and I don't think something I kind of mentioned a little bit off air before we went live was, have you ever heard the saying, there's 3 sides to every story, side A, side B, and then the truth? And I kind of feel like that's true in this situation. We're never really going to know an objective truth. Everyone's going to be their opinion. But anyway, the last thing I want to read. You guys not all asking for my side of the story. I gave you the 100% considering it a meltdown. There's a reason I didn't come out with it earlier. It's because I obviously don't want any of this public while I'm still on the team, especially the part of our 3 teammates mentioning dropping Clay to me before I ever did to them. I'm a grown-ass man who has been in the scene for a long time and have dealt with way more hate/criticism in that time than the other 3 guys. When Burner spun it as me convincing them, I figured I'd let the story rock and deal with the hate I knew I'd get rather than throw my teammates under the bus and have them be the target of the pitchforks that you all pull out, talking to Reddit again. I'm not immune to hate and criticism, as nobody is, but I sure as hell trust myself to be emotionally stable than most guys in the scene, especially 3 guys who are significantly younger and less experienced. If you want to take this as ironic and as an example of me being emotionally unstable, go for it. But in reality, this is the truth that you all crave when shit like this happens. Now that I'm no longer on the team, there's really no benefit in hiding the truth, is there? Sorry, I do apologize for my mic. I'm looking at upgrading all of my equipment. Problem financially, but I'm working on it. I apologize.
So it's mainly just when you first start speaking. So once you start, it's usually good, but the very first segment of that, the first couple of times that you started saying something, it would cut in and out, and then start. It would be good.
Very frustrating. Oh. As I said, I am hoping to upgrade, new PC, new mic, new head. Financial limitations.
And it did it again.
Oh, fantastic.
So yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think Jacob, it's going to be interesting to see how it all unfolds. That's the biggest thing. I think Jacob has been around for a long time. He's been on many teams. Just looking through here, Dominance, Extravagant, Optic, Envy, Optic again, Phase, Envy, Denial, Envy again, Luminosity, and United. These are all basically just top teams. He's never really been on a bad team, really. So I mean, the one that would stick out more than anything out of certainly the last 7 years would be Denial, and that's the team that he went on to win a Call of Duty championship with. So it's to answer what George just said, because that's kind of where I was going to go anyways. Where do you see Jacob going? I think he has options. EG is definitely a good guess. I think looking at how they performed at Fort Worth, they definitely need more stability in general. They had Attach who came in and like Parasite mentioned before, he played pretty well, but there's still players on that team that just aren't performing properly, right? We've got Gunja, Royalty, Fellow, Exotic, and now Attach, and yeah, it's just a case of that consistency. And some of these players, they've been around for a few years at least now, but they still don't seem to be performing consistently. I think one of the big ones as well that's stands out quite a lot for me is Gunjar. I don't think that Gunjar has been on top of his game for a few years, in all honesty, at this point. And I just don't know if he's the right fit for the team. I think that they do have a lot of potential. I just don't think that it's the right. I don't think that them working together works as well as it should.
Right. I would say, like, maybe, and I don't want to speak for Jacob, but I would be curious about, the older cards. There was much more of a place for this slow, methodical AR. Okay, you're going to push up, you're going to do this, you're going to clear this corner, then you push up a little more, take that really methodical approach. Whereas in this game, it's you sprint, you get a kill, you bash your head against the hard point, you die. You just bashing your head against whatever the objective is for that game mode or that map. And maybe his playstyle doesn't fit this game, but moving forward, and as I've seen on Twitter, maybe Modern Warfare 4, maybe there'll be more of a place in it for there. So I don't want to mention retiring, but maybe becoming a bench warmer and just seeing where it goes. I would like to see him on EG, but is that team is a bottom of the league team where he wants to go? Like you said, he is a very top tier player. So I don't know. It is very hard to say where he's going to go, but kind of hope for the best for him.
No, for sure. And so moving on to what somebody just asked a second ago, George again, actually. So with Bance and actually McLean, John, you also mentioned what happened with Bance. So Bance, obviously, we kind of touched on it earlier. He tweeted out as an FA, but then, was it you said Reedy?
I believe so, yeah.
Basically said, no, he's not. Which, just the general concept of it seems kind of childish in somewhat way. No, he's not. Yeah, it's kind of all up in the air right now. I don't think anybody really knows, other than obviously the players themselves on that team, what is exactly happening with them. I mean, what do you think? Like, do you think that they should be making changes? I already kind of touched on my thoughts on behind it. I think that they place well, like decently well in Division A so far in the Pro League. The people above them, Gen G, Midnight, Optic, and then Red Reserve. Right. So Gen G and Optic, you expect them to be up there. Midnight, the team that they previously had, absolutely you expect them to be up there. And then obviously the team that they have now, Parasite, obviously being on that team himself, I think that they've definitely got a lot to work on. Is that the right team specifically? Like the lineup that they have right now, I don't know. I think they probably will end up making changes as well when it comes to this next FA period. Right. But as far as Bance being on Red Reserve, I think that if they think that they should be doing better than what they are now, I think that they are expecting a lot. Right. In all honesty, I think if anything, they're already overperforming and doing more than what anybody really expected them to do. So,
right. And George H just said in chat, Scrap said that they're playing with him next week, but a change is imminent after that unless he improves next week. Said it all on stream. So right. I mean, kind of an official, really. Then
yeah,
he does has to improve personally, and I think it's kind of hard for players to. Like a lot of people are quite selfish. They want to play for the team, but then they're told, "Oh, you need to play for yourself. You need to make these changes personally." So it's kind of hard to compartmentalize. Right now, I want to, you want to throw this flash for your teammate or whatever the situation may be, but then you also want to be ready for the person who's going to come out and challenge you. So it's kind of hard, and it is very interesting. Yep. The other point is, who are they going to go for? Are they going to pluck another Dylan out of the UK somewhere?
Yeah, so that was going to be my next point. Exactly, it's who would Red Reserve get, because I think we already know that a lot of NA players are certainly resistant to just join an EU team. I think the other way around, it definitely works. Obviously, we've seen it work with Jerd and Splice,
Right.
but I don't think there's many NA teams out there that, players out there that would like openly be like, yes, I want to join an EU. Right? So I don't know. I think it's a tough one, and so McLean John hasn't won a single tournament with the roster they have. Maybe drastic changes are needed. Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree to the point of they haven't won any championships or anything at this point. But the problem is, what do they do? Because unfortunately, as an EU roster, it's just hard for them to pick up any players.
And then the other thing, George just mentioned in the chat, there's Alex.
Yeah.
There's also MaDaC. So, you know, I did say I don't know who they would get, but actually, so maybe they do have some options. I'm kind of curious to see where they would go. Moving on, I did see someone earlier in chat. I'm not entirely sure who that was. Someone mentioned that is rumored to be going to Envy, possibly for Assault, or I can't remember the other name that I saw floated around, but apparently he Scraps who said that on stream. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be very interesting to me to see Scraps on a not EU team, and whether, you know, he can perform to the level that he does consistently outside of the players that he's comfortable with, if he's in a slightly more uncomfortable role or a slightly more uncomfortable situation. And it would be kind of the downside to that is, I also read that he has a $200,000 and as I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, the organization as Red as a whole has kind of folded outside of Call of Duty. Maybe letting Scraps go to a team like Envy, or I don't know, just throwing a name out as 100 Thieves, you know, these orgs you know they could afford. Maybe that's how they get into the franchise league, because they let one of these big name players go, and that's where they get the money from. So I would be curious to see where that plays out. What are your opinions on
that? It's a tough one to call, really. Like it's just, especially with those kind of buyouts and everything else. I do think that not just bans. I think there's a couple of players that would be interesting to see kind of how they perform outside of these EU rosters, because all of the players that we see in these EU teams at this point have all been playing together for a long time, right? It's very similar to, you know, a lot of like the veteran players that we know throughout the whole scene. Like the EU players haven't really changed all that much, to be honest, over the years, right? So they have been playing together for a long time, and so I definitely would like to see some of the players expanding and, you know, doing kind of what Jerd did, or is doing, should I say. But yeah, it's just performing at the right time is the key thing, I think, because like I said, it's difficult for EU teams to obviously pick up the NA players, but it's also difficult for EU players to get into NA teams as well, right? So
right. Again, George mentioned in chat, I think whoever the personality is, that team is pretty stubborn. That is definitely one point. You know, some of these players can be very hard to get along with, really.
Yeah,
it is very interesting.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, that's why Parasite has had his issues over the years, and same thing with Killer. You know, there's many great players out there that have these issues, and eventually it's going to come around and bite in the ass, right? So I think it's, especially with franchising and everything around the corner, I think this is something that a lot of players kind of look into their own attitude and dedication to the game, and, you know, check themselves before they wreck themselves.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like we've pretty much touched on every topic that we had did you have anything else to mention today?
No, I don't think so. No, the main thing that I do want to mention is just the fact that I really just want to thank everybody who's tuned into the stream tonight. At one point we were verging on 100 viewers. Even now, 20 viewers, and we've been kind of hovering around that for a little while. So really thank you to everybody who's tuned into the stream. We really do appreciate it. We got our first hater this week, a huge milestone for us. We just kind of laughed it off, but it's something that we do expect to run into, of course. In fact, even at the start of the stream today, we had somebody in the chat who was kind of talking a bit of shit. And again, I thank everybody who's been in this, who was in the chat at that point, because there were a few people just like giving him shit back for giving us shit, basically. So yeah, thank you for everybody who's supporting and who's tuned into the stream. And more than anything, you know, I just want to touch on that fact that we mentioned earlier today. You know, we're not pros, we're not people who are super well known throughout the community or anything like that. We're just people who have seen that this is an empty space within our community, and we want to just try and fill it, not just for ourselves but for you guys as well, right? One of the things that we got on Twitter was, I hope it's Nameless that's hosting this show because I miss his podcast. Unfortunately, Nameless has a shit ton of stuff on his plate, right, whether you guys recognize it or not. Just because he's not on your screen on Twitch or wherever, I'm sure he has a lot of other stuff going on as well. So unfortunately, he's not able to keep up with it. We are trying to basically fill that space, right? So that's all it is. That's all we want to do. And yeah, at the end of the day, as we've kind of have been portraying over Twitter, and as we mentioned earlier on in the show, give us a shot. If you like us, you like us. If you don't, you don't. Simple as that.
My closing notes, I have a small checklist for our lovely viewers. I just want to echo your point. We do really appreciate that. First of all, go to audibletrial.com/the CWL podcast. Sign up for your free month. By all means, cancel it after that. Get a free month. You're missing out on so many audiobooks. They're so relaxing. They're so good to listen to. Can't speak highly enough about that service. Number two, you're going to go onto Twitter. There's 3 accounts you're going to follow. You're going to follow Stony, but it's as a 7 for a T. You're going to follow MaDaC FPS. You're going to follow the CWL podcast. 3 accounts, absolutely must follow. You're going to follow the stream. You're going to subscribe to MaDaC on YouTube. The Twitch stream is MaDaC FPS. The YouTube is youtube.com/MaDaC. There are so many places that you can go to listen to this show. I would like MaDaC. Can you reel off the list, because I know I'm going to miss one.
Yeah, so basically the way we do this show is we obviously stream it live on Twitch every week. Then 22 hours later, well, not specifically 22, because basically 6:30 the next day, it goes live on YouTube. We premiere the episode as well. So if you like the kind of live experience and you missed it when we streamed it on Twitch, it technically gets streamed on YouTube. Obviously, don't expect the questions that you ask in chat to be answered because it's not actually live, but you know what I mean. And then on top of that, within that same day, so the next day after it gets streamed on Twitch, we also upload it to SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play.
Did you miss one? I could have sworn there was 5.
SoundCloud, no, there's 4.
Oh, okay. Because that's what I was worried about. I was worried about missing one. Anyway,
no, that's 4.
Just, there's no excuse for not listening. There are so many places you can go, so many ways you can support the show, whether that's after the fact, that's on Twitter, that, you know, we do appreciate each and every single one of you. Once again, I just want to say thank you to Parasite taking his time out from apparently mid-scrim to come on the show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure exactly the time scale that he was on, but whatever it was, we do appreciate that. And yeah, thank you all. Oh, next guest.
So I'm basically the guest coordinator, I guess, at this point.
Absolutely,
So basically the way things are working out right now, I do have a couple of people who have kind of already said yes, but at the same time we're kind of like, do we want this person yet or do we not? So we're kind of picking and choosing who we actually do bring on the show. Obviously we don't want to just kind of those boosts all at once and bring on 6 people at once, right? So the way I'm trying to do it is I'm doing the show and then I'm starting to contact people like pretty much straight away after this. So next guest, I don't know yet. Have a couple of people in mind, but and like a couple of people that I've already spoken to, but nothing's 100%. So best thing to do, as Tony already mentioned, follow us at the CWL podcast on Twitter, and as soon as I find out, I basically tweet it out right away. So maybe Dylan, maybe, I don't know, but
we'd love to have him on, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't speak highly enough about his gameplay, so we'd love to speak to him in person. Anyway,
and one other thing I did want to mention just before we finish up here, on top of the podcast, this is still my stream. So if anybody does enjoy watching a bit of Call of Duty, I'm trying to mix it up as well a little bit more recently. So I've been playing a little bit of Dead by Daylight, maybe some CSGO, maybe some League of Legends every now and again, things like that, but mainly Call of Duty, because let's face it, that's what we're all here for. If you are interested, be sure to hit that follow button. I know a lot of you already have tonight. We've actually jumped up, I believe, 20 followers or around that mark tonight, if not more. So thank you all once again.
Shout out all those people.
And again, as far as that stream goes, though, if you are interested in tuning into the next stream, by following me on Twitter, you would see it. However, my stream will be live at 10 a.m.
Nice.
Eastern Standard Time.
Prediction for the next week. What are you thinking is going to happen in the Call of Duty? Is it going to implode? Is it going to... What's going to happen?
So next week, so that's when... Next week's the first week of cross division play. So... Okay, like, what do you want from me? Because there's a lot of games. I'm not going to run through all of them.
Who's going to lose every game that they play?
Ooh.
I'm going to have to pull up the schedule. Just give me 1 second here. Accelerate? Okay.
Yeah. They play against Red Reserve. They play against
that's a loss.
LG.
That's a loss.
UYU.
That's a loss.
And EG.
Ooh. I think you...
That's the wild card, but I'm still going to throw it out there.
You maybe tripped up with that EG. I'm just...
I mean, I feel like that's the only one you could count me with.
Oh, let me see. I think... And it's going to break my heart to say this. I think E United's going to go 1-3.
Who you were going to say?
I'm very open about my bias.
Who do they win against?
Let me see. They're playing EG. They're playing UYU. They're playing LG, and they're playing Red Reserve.
Red Reserve.
I've got to say EG. I mean, there's a reason they're the bottom of the league.
NG goes 500. 500. I'm guessing it means 5-0.
500 means like even, so like.
Oh, right.
Or 2-2 it would be. But...
I get it. Okay, and a Midnight gets a win against the top team. Yeah, so that's my, I guess, bold prediction as well, would be that Midnight actually come up next. So this isn't next week, afterwards, but I am going to say on that week. And remind me, McLean John, I expect you to be in the podcast next week.
About to say that.
Remind me when Sam asks me again to say my bold prediction is Midnight come out winning the majority of the games.
Yeah. For people who don't necessarily tune in at the very beginning of the show, we do like to... McLean John, we expect you to be there next week. And just putting that... Oh, I'm sorry. We do review our previous bold predictions at the very beginning of the show. So McLean John, we do expect you to be there with us to look at those, and you can hold us accountable. I'm not placing a bet this time, but anyway, just once again, just want to say thank you so much to all of our viewers, and thanks for another great show.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, I mean, once again, Stony, plug yourself.
Oh.
Oh no, you already did that, didn't you?
Yeah, follow me on Twitter.
That's S7ONEY.
It better be on stream on screen next week, otherwise I'm gonna riot and not come.
Next week it will be on stream. Promise. Okay, well, once again, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and if you did, once again, go ahead and follow us on all those places as we've already mentioned, and we will see you guys later.